"You're a burden, Mama. I sold Daddy's company. You're on your own now." That's what came out of my son's mouth, and all I said was, "Good luck, baby." Because what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been waiting for this moment for years. What he thought he sold wasn't ever really his. What he thought was power was borrowed air. He parked that shiny BMW like he owned the block. Black suit, expensive watch, no tie, that kind of grown man outfit that says I take myself seriously, especially in front of people who used to change his diapers. Darius didn't even knock soft. He banged on the front door, my door, like the house owed him something. He knew I'd be home. He knew I made coffee at 8 sharp. He knew I'd answer wearing my lavender house dress and slippers, and he wasn't alone. She was with him. Vanessa. High heels clicking, curls tight, sunglasses too big for the cloudy day. She was the strategist. Darius might have driven, but she held the steering wheel in their life. And I could feel it from the other side of the screen door. They stepped inside without looking at the fish tank, the framed family photos, or the painting of my mother over the mantel. Made themselves comfortable in my living room, like this was a conference room at Chase Bank. Darius didn't sit. Vanessa did. She crossed her legs and opened a briefcase that looked more expensive than my car payment. "Mama Benne," she said, voice sweet as artificial honey. "Thank you for seeing us." I didn't answer, just stirred my sugar into my coffee and looked her dead in the face. That's when Darius said it. "We sold the company. It's done. You'll get your share Friday." The company they were talking about? Benne Freight. My life's work. Started with one pickup truck my husband and I bought, used from his cousin Reggie in 1986. While Harold drove and handled diesel, I did dispatch, routing, paperwork, and payroll from the kitchen counter. Every deal, every permit, every shipment, every late-night phone call when drivers broke down in Arkansas. Every negotiation with suppliers who thought a black woman couldn't read contracts. Harold ran the road, I ran the numbers. Back then, banks didn't give loans to black trucking startups. So we saved. Flipped one route into 10, 10 into a depot into a regional presence by 1998. We did that. Together. But here's what Darius never knew. While he was at Morehouse studying business theory, I was at the kitchen table at 2 a.m., learning logistics software, memorizing interstate commerce regulations, and building relationships with every major supplier from Houston to Atlanta. When Harold had his first heart attack in 2003, guess who kept those trucks rolling? When we expanded to 3 states in 2007, guess who wrote those expansion proposals? When we survived the 2008 recession while bigger companies folded, guess who restructured our entire debt portfolio? Me. But the business cards always said, Harold Bennett, CEO. The bank meetings were always Mr. Bennett and his wife. The industry awards were always Harold Bennett and Benne Freight. And I smiled, stayed quiet. Let him shine. Because I knew something they didn't. The sun don't make the roots grow, the soil does. Now these 2 babies, my son and the woman who barely knew my middle name, walked into my house and told me I was being paid off. "We sold at $3.2 million, Vanessa said, pulling out documents. "Your share will clear $1.5 million after fees. That's extremely generous for a retired owner." "Generous?" she said, generous. While drinking sweet tea, I poured. I picked up those papers, slick, legally tight, all notarized, all signed, all missing the one thing that mattered, me. "You didn't ask me," I said. "You haven't shown up to a shareholder call in 9 months, Darius snapped. "You missed 2 signatures. You forgot about your doctor's appointment. You need to slow down." "I'm not dead," I said. "You act like it." Vanessa touched his leg like she was calming a pit bull before a mess. "You've done so much, Mama Benne. But it's time to rest. This stress, this business, it's not meant for you anymore." That's when I sat back in Harold's old chair. And Darius leaned in with that look, the one that said he thought he was being merciful. "We're calling this your soft retirement. We're going to put you in an apartment closer to us. We'll handle everything. You just focus on enjoying your grandkids. Then he said the words that changed everything. Besides, Daddy would have wanted it this way. That's when I stood up, real slow. I walked to the window, looked out at the trucks rolling down 14th Street. Some of our trucks, my trucks, and I said, "You think I'm a burden? You think I'm confused? You think I forgot what I built? Let me tell you something, baby. Your daddy gave this company his name, but I gave it its value." Vanessa blinked. "Mama Benne, please don't take this personal." "Oh no, baby. I do. I take it exactly how it's meant." And that's when I smiled. Not loud, not mean, the kind of smile black mamas give you, right before lightning hits the building. "Good luck, baby. I hope Barcelona treats y'all well." Vanessa's eyes snapped wide. "Wait, how you know we're going to Barcelona?" I just turned and said, "Because I taught you security, and you forgot. Old Mama's watch, and we remember everything." By the time they backed out of my driveway, that $80,000 BMW was the least valuable thing in the picture. They were smiling, clapping hands together like they won the lottery. Vanessa even said on the porch, "That was easier than I expected." Sweetheart, if you ever think a black woman older than 60 gives up that easy, you don't know your roots. I texted one person, "Vincent, it's time." When that man pulled up in his beige Lincoln 40 minutes later with a briefcase that looked heavier than it should have, I had already brewed the strong coffee. Vincent had been our lawyer since I was still typing contracts on a typewriter. Civil rights marches, business license fights. He was the one person who knew what I'd built and why I'd protected it. He sat down, wiped fog off his glasses, and said, "So, the boy finally thought he had you, huh?" "Just like we planned," I said. Because what Vanessa and Darius didn't know was this. 3 years ago, after Harold passed, I rewrote every protection clause in the business. I moved 77% of the company's true assets, intellectual property, logistics licenses, infrastructure, partner contracts, into a separate trust. Not the public company, not what was visible on tax returns, but the engine of our empire, the soul of it. And who was the sole holder of that trust? Me, because I knew my son. I knew the moment he graduated summa cum laude from Morehouse, he'd be dangerous. Not because he was smart, but because he started mistaking credentials for wisdom. I watched him come home talking about disrupting traditional business models and optimizing generational wealth transfer. Big words for a boy who still called me when his car made funny noises. But the real moment I knew trouble was coming. Christmas dinner 2021. Harold had been gone 6 months. The business was thriving under my quiet leadership. Our drivers were making more money than they'd ever made. Our clients were happier than they'd ever been. And Darius stood up at my dinner table, and announced, "I'm ready to take Benefreight to the next level. With all due respect, Mama, this company needs young energy." My sister Ruby almost choked on her mac and cheese. "Young energy?" she said. "Baby, who you think been energizing this company for 35 years? But Darius wasn't listening. He was looking at his phone, typing something, probably tweeting about inheriting family legacy or some nonsense. That's when I started planning. See, here's what MBA programs don't teach you. Real power isn't loud. It's connected. While Darius was busy networking with his fraternity brothers and young professionals, I was having coffee with women who'd been moving money quietly for decades. Sister Johnson from Mount Olive Baptist. She ran the largest minority contractor network in Louisiana. Deacon Williams's wife, Celeste. She'd been placing black executives in Fortune 500 companies since the 1980s. My cousin Aria, Stanford MBA, but more importantly, she understood that business is about relationships, not just spreadsheets. Every second Sunday after church, we'd sit on my back porch and I'd tell them what I was seeing. "That boy's getting too comfortable. He thinks this business runs itself." "What you gonna do?" Sister Johnson asked. "Teach him the difference between ownership and stewardship." They all nodded, because they'd all raised sons who thought they were smarter than their mothers, and they'd all had to humble them back to earth. 6 months ago, I started moving pieces. I called Celeste in Dallas. "I need you to take over East Texas operations quietly." I handed back-end controls to Aria. Stanford MBA meets generational wisdom. Let's see what that creates. I restructured our client contracts under a new umbrella company, Bennett Legacy Logistics. I moved our best drivers to the new company. I transferred our most profitable routes. I secured our most important supplier relationships. All while Darius was busy playing CEO, throwing around words like automation and modernization in pitch meetings. They said I was forgetful, I told Vincent that day, flipping through recent financial reports. But who forgot to check who actually held the permits for cross-state freight distribution? Vincent sipped his coffee slow. It's a shame, though. He's still your son. And I'm still his mother. This isn't revenge, it's revelation. But he gonna find out. Oh, I'd say around tomorrow morning, right before hotel checkout in Barcelona, when all the cards get declined, and the wire transfer never hits his account. When that burden he sold turns out to be his only lifeboat, and it's mine. That call came in at 3:17 a.m. Texas time. Barcelona's sun had barely risen. Mama, something's wrong with the bank. I let it ring twice before answering, wearing my robe and slippers, holding my tea like royalty. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. You say what now? The main account of the company payout. It was supposed to hit last night. I checked like 10 times this morning. Oh, that account's closed, sweetheart. Dead silence. You ever feel someone's mouth hanging open across a phone line? That was Darius, stuck in a 1,300 a night Barcelona hotel, thinking a burden couldn't leave a man broken while smiling in a silk robe. Then came the squealing in the background. Vanessa must have snatched the phone. Excuse me, Mrs. Bennett. Why was that account closed? We were told the wire would hit by this morning. Your papers said, I beg your pardon? No need to raise your voice, baby. I said, That's Southern for, you're doing too much, too loud, too late. Vanessa was breathing fire. Darius, breathing panic. We tried to use the card at breakfast. Declined. Card for the car. Declined. I even called Mr. Kapoor directly. He's not responding. Mr. Kapoor, I repeated. Yes, the buyer's rep. He confirmed everything. I leaned back in my kitchen chair. Darius, Mr. Kapoor never had real access to asset flow. What? He bought the name, the shell. What he didn't buy was value. That money you thought was coming never existed. More silence. I could feel it setting in. When he finally said nothing, I said everything. Baby, you sold a building with no business inside. The trucks, under a different LLC. The contracts, held in trust. The name, registered new in 3 states. To me. You didn't sell Daddy's company. You just leased a memory. I stood slowly and walked to the window. Same one I watched his tricycle roll past when he was 3. Same one Harold used to wave through each morning during deliveries. You should have asked first. He tried to find his voice. That's not possible, he muttered. You signed. Signatures don't mean much when you don't read page 3, or the footnotes. You tricked me. You underestimated me. That's worse. Vanessa came back on, louder than last time. We're stranded, Mrs. Bennett. We have no access to funds, no backup. That's unfortunate. We were supposed to stay here a week. We haven't even seen the Duomo, and we can't afford the hotel. Then y'all better walk fast, baby. That hotel got checkout at 11 a.m. And honey, that walk of shame on European cobblestone, it hits different. I paused, let it sit deep in her chest. You called me a burden, but it looks like you're the one who needs saving now, Vanessa gasped. We'll sue. With what lawyer? And what check? I asked sweetly, while stirring honey into my tea. Then I gave them the worst threat a southern black mama can deliver. You grown, now act like it. Welcome to independence, baby. Dress warm for your flight home. Click. What I didn't tell them was that I had eyes everywhere. Remember young Keisha, the 25-year-old logistics coordinator that Darius fired last month for insubordination? She wasn't insubordinate. She was my inside source. Every meeting Darius had, every decision he made, every disrespectful comment about the old generation, Keisha reported it all. The morning after my phone call with Darius, Keisha sent me a video. It was security footage from the Barcelona hotel lobby. There was Darius, in yesterday's wrinkled suit, arguing with the desk clerk about extending checkout. There was Vanessa, frantically calling numbers on her phone, each call ending with her face getting redder. There was them, sitting in the lobby with their luggage, looking like two lost tourists who'd just realized they'd been scammed. I watched that video 3 times, not because I was celebrating their misery, but because I needed to see if there was any humility in my son's posture. There wasn't. Even stranded in Barcelona, even broke, even abandoned by the very people who'd bought his company, Darius was still pointing fingers, still blaming everyone but himself, still acting like the victim. Sunday morning, I sat in my usual pew at Mount Olive Baptist. Sister Johnson slid in next to me during opening hymn. "How them babies doing in Spa?" she whispered. I showed her the video on my phone. She covered her mouth to keep from laughing out loud during Amazing Grace. That boy got some learning to do. Yes, he does. After service, the usual crew gathered on the church steps. Sister Johnson, Deacon William's wife Celeste, my cousin Aria, and Mother Patterson, who'd been running the church's financial ministry since before I was born. "So what's the plan now?" Celeste asked. "Now we wait," I said. "Wait for what?" "For him to come home, hat in hand, pride in the trash, ready to learn instead of lead." Mother Patterson nodded slowly. "That's the hardest lesson for a man to learn, that sometimes the teacher looks like the student." "And sometimes," Sister Johnson added, "the CEO looks like the janitor." We all smiled, because we'd all been there, been underestimated, been overlooked, been called just the wife, or just the mother, or just the helper. While we built empires in silence, that afternoon I got a call I wasn't expecting. "Benny, this is Reggie." Reggie, Harold's cousin, the one who sold us that first pickup truck in 1986. "I heard through the grapevine that young Darius tried to sell y'all business." "He did sell it, or thought he did." Reggie laughed, that deep, knowing laugh that comes from 40 years of watching family mess up and learn. "I also heard you might be looking for some investment capital for your new venture." I paused. "You heard right." "Well, I got some money sitting around, been waiting for the right opportunity, and I figure if you built one empire from scratch, you can build another one." "What kind of money we talking, Reggie?" $2.5 million as a start." I nearly dropped the phone. "Where you get that kind of money?" "Same place you did, cousin. One day at a time. One smart decision at a time. One relationship at a time." Turns out, Reggie had been running a quiet construction empire for 20 years. Government contracts, commercial buildings, the kind of business that doesn't make headlines but makes millionaires. "I've been watching you, Benny. Since '86. You had the vision then. You got the wisdom now. That's a combination worth investing in. What you want in return? Partnership. 60-40. You run operations, I handle capital and expansion." I thought about it for exactly 30 seconds. "Deal." "Good. Now let's go show these young folks how real business gets done." It was 7:22 p.m. on a Tuesday when I heard that car again. The same tired BMW pulling back into my driveway. Not as shiny this time, not as loud. And the attitude it used to carry, gone. Harold used to say, "Pride don't drive long, especially not on empty." I sipped my lemon water real slow while I watched Vanessa slam the car door harder than necessary. She walked up first, her heels, now flats, hair still laid, but her face, pale. That woman was tired, real tired. Darius followed, carrying a single duffel bag. Suit wrinkled, looked like he slept in it. The doorbell didn't punch this time. It asked. I opened that door like I had all the time in the world. "Mama," Darius started. "You all hungry?" I asked. Vanessa blinked. "We haven't eaten since we landed. No cards, no cash. Barely got a lift from the airport." "There's red beans on the stove," I said softly. "Spoons in the pot." They stepped in real quiet. I had set the house up just like Harold liked it. Gospel low in the back kitchen warm, and the big light turned off, because peace don't need to be spotlighted. Vanessa didn't say a word when she sat at the table and fixed her bowl. By the time they'd eaten their second helping, Darius finally looked at me. "I came to talk," he said, voice shaking. "I told you, I replied. Now you can sit. He stared at me like he didn't understand, so I pulled out a folded paper, set it on the table, typed clean, ink crisp. You want to start learning? He nodded. Then here's a lease agreement. Spare room is $75 a week. No back pay if you fall short. You'll clean, grocery shop, and fix the gutters your daddy kept asking for help with since 2019. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. You serious? Dead. Vanessa choked a laugh. You're putting him on rent? Your own son? I didn't even blink. You wanted him to be a man, right? He was quiet for a long moment, then reached for the pen. Okay, I'll sign. I watched him carefully. This wasn't about punishment, baby. This was about reflection, about respect. I'd spent decades lowering my voice so people could be loud being wrong. And now, I wasn't yelling. I was building, one boundary at a time. They slept that night in the room Darius grew up in. Same bed, same posters, same window he used to sneak out of when he was 16. Only this time, with lessons burning around him. The next morning, he came to the table before the coffee finished dripping. Shirt ironed, hair trimmed back to normal. Mama, thank you for not slamming the door. That's not what you needed, I said. You don't need my anger. You need to see yourself. He looked me in the eyes. I saw it in Barcelona. I saw the boy I used to be. Arrogant, entitled, soft. He swallowed hard. And I saw the woman who kept him safe, even after he tried to leave her out the story. I passed him his coffee. Then the learning can start now. 3 weeks passed, Darius still in that spare room. Grocery bags in one hand, plot twists in the other. He mowed the lawn now, took the trash out. And every morning, he brought me my paper and coffee like he used to when he was 10, back when Harold told him, men serve before they lead. And every night, he sat beside me in my office going over client briefs, contract deadlines, software maintenance. No more shortcuts, no more assumptions. He was showing up, hungry to learn, not entitled to lead. And I? I was quiet. See, black mothers don't teach with charts. We teach with structure, correction, and that transformational stare over the brim of the glasses at the dinner table. But I was also watching to see if the humility was real, watching to see if the boy who called me a burden could learn to see me as a foundation. And slowly, I started to see it. Vanessa came by 2 weeks later, dressed casual, eyes low, no briefcase this time. She handed me a small card with a note scribbled in delicate handwriting. Mrs. Bennett, thank you for the lesson. I'm starting over, with respect this time. V. No drama, no speech. She just turned and walked away. Later, I found out through the church network that she'd moved back to her hometown in Mississippi, started a small business consulting firm, specializing in helping family businesses navigate generational transitions, with respect, with patience, with the understanding that sometimes the oldest voice in the room is the wisest. And that was enough. 1 month after Barcelona, I called Keisha. You still looking for work? Yes, ma'am. Been interviewing, but nothing feels right. Well, I got a position, operations manager, Bennett Legacy Logistics. The new company. The real company. The one that's been running all along. She was quiet for a moment. What about Mr. Darius? Won't he be upset? Mr. Darius is learning that respect is earned, not inherited, and you earned this position by being loyal when it mattered. What's the salary? $85,000 to start, full benefits, profit sharing, and the respect you should have had all along. I heard her crying on the other end. Mrs. Bennett, thank you. Thank you, baby, for seeing what needed to be seen, for documenting what needed to be documented, for being brave when it mattered. The next Monday, Keisha walked into our new office building, brand new suit, head held high. And when Darius saw her there, in the position he'd fired her from, managing the operations he thought he'd sold, he didn't get angry, he got understanding, because that's what real learning looks like. 6 months later, I decided it was time. I went to the bedroom closet and pulled out a small cedar box. Inside, a sealed envelope with Harold's handwriting, "For Benne, when the day comes." I'd been saving it for 3 years, waiting for the right moment, the moment when I'd need his voice again. I opened it with shaking hands. "My beautiful wife, if you're reading this," then the boy tried to do exactly what I thought he'd do. He tried to sell what we built without understanding what we built. Don't be angry with him, he's young. He thinks business is about transactions instead of relationships. He'll learn, but I need you to know something. I always knew you were the real power behind everything we accomplished. I just needed the world to see me as strong so you could be strategic. You were never my helper. You were my partner, my equal, my better half in every way that mattered. I've left you 3 things in the safety deposit box at First National. 1. The original partnership agreement naming you as primary owner. 2. A letter of recommendation to the Small Business Administration. 3. $500,000 in bonds that only you can access. Use them wisely. Build again. Show that boy what real legacy looks like. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm watching. Your husband, Harold P.S. Don't let Darius read this until he's ready. He'll know when he's ready. I cried for an hour. Not sad tears, grateful tears. Because even from beyond, Harold was still protecting what we'd built, still believing in what I could build. With Harold's bonds, Reggie's investment, and the foundation I'd already built, Bennett Legacy Logistics exploded. Within 6 months, 47 trucks routes in 8 states, 12 million in annual revenue, 156 employees, and at the center of it all, Darius, not as CEO, not as the heir, but as operations coordinator, learning, growing, contributing, and for the first time in his life understanding that leadership isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the most prepared, the most respectful, the most willing to serve. 1 year after Barcelona, the Louisiana Small Business Association called, "Mrs. Bennett, we'd like to present you with the Entrepreneur of the Year award." For what? For building a multi-million-dollar logistics empire while maintaining family values and community investment. The ceremony was held at the New Orleans Convention Center, 500 people in attendance, local news cameras. The mayor gave a speech, and when they called my name, I walked to that podium in my best purple dress, looked out at the crowd and said, "This award isn't just for me, it's for every woman who built something in silence, every mother who was called a burden instead of a blessing, every wife who was seen as a helper instead of a leader." We didn't build for recognition, we built for legacy, and today that legacy stands tall. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes, and in the front row, Darius, clapping harder than anyone, tears in his eyes, finally understanding what he'd almost thrown away. 2 years after Barcelona, Darius asked to speak with me privately. We sat on the back porch, sweet tea in hand, watching the sunset. "Mama," he said, "I owe you an apology." "You don't owe me anything, baby." "Yes, I do. I owe you the truth." He took a deep breath. "I called you a burden because I was afraid you'd never need me. I sold the company because I was afraid I'd never be as good as you. I disrespected you because I was afraid of disappointing you. And what are you afraid of now? I'm afraid I've learned too late that the damage is done, that I'll never earn back your trust." I looked at my son, really looked at him. No more arrogance, no more entitlement, just a man who'd learned the hardest lesson of his life. "Trust isn't something you earn back," I said. "Trust is something you build, every day, with every choice, with every action. Will you give me the chance?" "I already have." I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. "What's this?" "Your father's letter. He left it for you, for when you were ready." His hands shook as he opened it. "Son, your mother is the strongest woman I've ever known. She's also the smartest, the most strategic, and the most loving. I spent 35 years learning to be worthy of her partnership. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't spend your life trying to prove you're better than her. Spend it learning to be grateful for her. She's not your competition. She's your foundation. Build on it. Don't try to replace it. Love, Dad. Darius cried like a baby. And for the first time in 3 years, I held my son like he was still my little boy, because he always would be. Today, Bennett Legacy Logistics employs 340 people. We operate in 12 states. We've been featured in Black Enterprise magazine. We've won 3 industry awards. And we're still growing. Darius is now VP of Operations. Keisha is Chief Operating Officer. Reggie handles expansion and capital. And me? I'm chairman of the board. Not because I demanded it, not because I forced it, but because I earned it every day for 40 years. One decision at a time. They thought calling me a burden would shake me. It made me rise. They thought selling my legacy would leave me empty. It made me rebuild. And they once thought I was just Harold's wife. Now the world knows I was always Bennett Legacy Logistics. The difference between being erased and being recognized isn't loud. It's strategic, it's patient, it's prepared, and it's powerful. Because legacies don't die quietly. Sometimes they walk right back through the front door, with tea in one hand and a contract in the other. And sometimes they build something bigger, something better, something that lasts, not because they had to, but because they could. And that's the difference between revenge and revelation. One destroys, the other builds. And I've always been a builder. If you've ever been called a burden when you were actually the backbone, if you've ever been underestimated when you were the one holding everything together, if you've ever had to prove your worth to people who should have known it all along, this story is for you because your time is coming, and when it does, they'll finally understand what they almost threw away. You know, back in our day, we didn't have fancy degrees or social media to prove our worth. We had wisdom earned through years of quiet strength, relationships built on trust, and the kind of patience that only comes from understanding that real power isn't loud, it's lasting. Some of you'll remember when a handshake meant something, when your word was your bond, when respect was earned through years of showing up, not just showing off. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what's your story of being underestimated? I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. Hit that subscribe button if you're ready for more stories that celebrate the power of quiet strength and the wisdom that only comes with age and experience.